From humble beginnings of breaking ground in Sandton with its Stella Street office space to its first live business broadcast on June 1st, 2007, CNBC Africa launched in sub-Saharan Africa with a bang.
On June 1st, we welcome CNBC Africa to the global network.
Now, thousands of hours of locally produced quality business content later, and we're celebrating our 10th birthday. In the next hour, we'll talk about the journey of a special few who have been with us from the start and seen the broadcaster through thick and thin. We'll also chat to the founding members about their motivation behind launching the very first Pan-African business channel and the magic behind making it the success it has become in the modern media landscape. From Johannesburg to Lagos, from Kigali to Nairobi, from glamour to laughter, from the business community to you, this is CNBC Africa, 10 years and counting.
So it's a very exciting time for CNBC Africa. We're turning 10 years this year.
Coming in yesterday, I was reading an article on the T20 cricket. I can make comparisons, okay?
Definitely.
And they said that in T20 cricket, you have the power play, which is 1 to 6, and then 7 to 15 is the consolidation or whatever stage, and then 16 to 20 is the big one where you've got to score. So I can relate to that your phases of life are your initial education, then your start of your professional life or whatever, sector that you enter, where you try and make a mark and then try and achieve what your goals are. And the last phase is if you're lucky enough to find your passion.
Do you remember what brought about the idea though? Because you were sitting just one day. Can you take me back through that very moment?
Oh, that was, you've got to go back to the 90s, early 90s, where Star Television had started with Rupert Murdoch in Hong Kong. And we started getting in all kinds of satellite channels. And I said, this seems to be nice, but I was always fond of writing, and I used to write on business for a national newspaper as a hobby.
Oh.
And so I said, why don't I do this and have a go at this?
Financing and all of those things, how did that come into play?
I think, yes, that was a challenge, because putting up and getting investors, but I was lucky. I found people, 7 or 8 people who, these were successful businessmen and professionals as well, who were interested in this idea of a private production company, because you only had state television at that time. So a private production company, they said, okay, we'll all put it up, whatever your needs are. And I put in my share, and that's how we started.
Every successful company needs to be represented by a visionary, and the visionary behind CNBC Africa is co-founder and vice chairman Rakesh Wahi. Let's just take it a few steps back into the past. What made you found CNBC Africa?
I think it was the opportunity here in Africa, and I came to South Africa in 2004. In October 2004, and it was to look for an opportunity around a business news television station. We had already had a track record of setting up a few CNBC properties in the Middle East and Pakistan, and at an arm's length we were also involved with CNBC India. So when I came to South Africa, I came with a lot of traditional, I think, apprehensions that people have coming into Africa. I'd never been south of Egypt until 2004. And when I came here, the place just surprised me. It was a first world infrastructure, outstanding people, great systems that had been set up. So I think, I just fell in love with South Africa. And as I traveled around the rest of Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, I found it was very similar to India, the country where I come from. And so the rest was history. We just felt that this was a place to be. And there wasn't a business news channel, a Pan-African channel at that time. There was a lot of negativity around the African continent. People were talking about gloom, doom, despotic leadership, lack of transparency, corruption, the usual. And we felt that, you know, there were a lot of businesses that were doing great business here. The JSC is one of the top exchanges in the world, and the other capital markets were developing, and there was nobody who was actually doing anything to encapsulate the whole business story or the economic story of Africa. So that was the opportunity that we saw, and both my partner Zafar and I, we actually felt that, you know, this was an ideal time to launch a television network here.
Now, every company has key employees who stay with the business to help mold and shape what it eventually becomes. So we chatted to some of these core staff members who have been with us from the very beginning about their beginnings with CNBC Africa.
So my CV landed with the HR manager at the time, and they were looking for an accountant to get them through their audit. I liked what I had seen, particularly from the interview and those that had interviewed me, so I accepted. Still not knowing what I was going to get into, I had no idea or no sort of experience when it came to the media industry, but it excited me and it challenged me.
I heard the brand was launching in South Africa and then into broader Africa, and Maria Bartiromo was my all-time hero, the money honey out of New York, and I wanted to be South Africa's Maria Bartiromo, and of course the alignment with the brand was the sure way to do that. So there was no stopping me. As soon as I heard CNBC Africa was launching, I engaged with management. I remember meeting with Rakesh Wahi, the founder and vice chairman of Africa Business News Group, and signed on as the second employee. I think I was PR 002.
I'd actually started off at CNBC Africa as a junior producer, producing a daily lifestyle show, which was live, and some weekend programming in property and tech. And that was my first sort of exposure to the business.
I started here the 1st of April 2007. So I'm 10 years with CNBC Africa. The reason I wanted to be part of CNBC Africa, because CNBC is an international brand, and I wanted to be part of that.
Prior to joining CNBC, I had my own production company, and at the time I needed to make some fun family decisions, and I actually approached CNBC and said, look, this is my skill set and this is what I'm able to do.
I do vision control, and I was brought to CNBC by ad I saw on paper. I was like, wow, the peacock is coming to Africa. I need to be part of that.
I started with the CNBC Africa with its inception in 2007, and actually directed the first broadcast from the Stella studio.
I think because it was a new company, I was looking for a new opportunity from where I was working before, and also money.
I'll never forget the interview. You know, Gary said to me, firstly he obviously asked me questions about my studies and all that, and then he said to me, how much was I expecting to get paid? And I said, just enough to pay for rent and put fuel in my car and eat some food, you know what I mean? And he said, okay, you've got the job, when can you start?
I'm the camera operator here at CNBC Africa. I think I've been promoted to floor manager. I don't know which year that was. Feels like ages ago.
Got a call from Nonzolo saying they're looking for freelancers, especially to work on weekends.
I'm the production manager. We pick up all the pieces and make sure things go to air. And how I ended up here is I've been in broadcast my whole career.
I give it a go, and then they called me in for an interview. I went in there and I charmed everyone.
As you can see, I'm not a person to be in front of the camera lens, so I'll rather prefer sticking behind the camera and operating it.
I think what really struck me was that we had one business channel at the time in South Africa, and I'd obviously been a part of that team and the launch of the first business channel in South Africa. CNBC Africa's aspirations were so much bigger. They were creating an Africa-wide business channel.
Happy birthday, CNBC Africa. It's been fantastic. I remember when you were a baby. I was there in the first week. 10 years, it's hard to believe. Hot, 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 hot.
No business journey is easy. Tell us a little bit about the first 2 years and some of the challenges that you encountered in getting the brand off the ground.
Well, I guess, I'd rather forget the first 2 years because the planning period was a bit interesting because distribution on the channel on the continent has been lacking. DSTV is the only DTH platform and was the only platform at that point. So the major challenge that we saw from a setup point of view was distribution and getting the channel to viewers. But soon after we launched, the world was hit by this global recession in 2008.
Interest at banks.
Crisis will happen.
The biggest fiscal stimulus we have ever seen.
And that'll solve the problem.
We're in the midst of a serious financial crisis.
And it's not great to be in a startup business, particularly media, when you are starting a startup and then you have a worldwide recession. Nobody knew the outcomes of it, and nobody knew how long it was going to take. And we had to start consolidating the business between 2008, and so as soon as you launch, you had to actually go into a phase of consolidation because we had to be very prudent about what we were looking at in the long term.
The first few years weren't always easy, but the channel quickly established itself as a business brand to be reckoned with.
This idea has given the tailoring and boutique business a whole new dimension.
The investment in Sun City was 5 times the size of the biggest hotel that we'd ever built.
Darling, you've just settled all your debt. What is this about? She says you don't understand. They were having a son.
The major challenge that is facing Africa at this moment, and some countries in particular, is a perception issue.
He was ready to share responsibilities.
I don't want to answer the question from your angle.
But this is tough because the world economy is in a very difficult place.
First in business worldwide.
But we've been able to establish ourselves as the go-to channel in Pan-Africa. And I think people today look up to CNBC as a high watermark in broadcast. So whether it's technical capabilities, it's our staff, our journalists, we're very proud of what we've created.
As with any company though, people grow. In the bustling world of news and media, career growth is a given.
I found myself being very keen to get more involved in the strategy, and the African continent is something that actually was very intriguing. It was sort of untouched territory back in the day, and I wanted to get more involved. So I started to stick my nose in everyone else's business, if I could say.
I had the opportunity to move over into marketing and got the full 360 experience in terms of all the different marketing disciplines. Ended up heading up marketing for the group when Forbes Africa and the digital business came online and the media training business. And one day the chairman and the MD sat me down and said, look, we'd like you to head up the events business. And I'd always wanted to do something entrepreneurial and kind of had the best of both worlds, where I had the benefit of being part of a corporate structure, but had the freedom to kind of run a business and kind of have that entrepreneurial exposure. And that's kind of how I've ended up what I'm doing right now.
The greatest joy is interacting with our people. Like in any organization, the core of everything is your staff. And I've been a great believer that in life you cannot build anything without the support and commitment of a very strong team. And that's what we've built over the last 10 years, whether it's here in South Africa, in our bureaus, in the regions, whether it was in Kenya, Rwanda, in Nigeria. So when I look at the team we've built, the way their commitment into what we're doing, their commitment into the vision that I had laid out in 2007, and making sure that we hit each of these milestones systematically. We wanted to be in the events business, we wanted a print business, so we set out everything. So whatever we planned, we were able to establish.
I became strategically involved, and I worked very closely with Rukesh, which obviously allowed me to work myself into the position that I'm currently at.
So currently I'm the Director for Business Development and Strategy. And that's been a long progression over 10 years, starting off really as a sales manager or sales rep. And then in the last year now, moved up to Director for Business Development Strategy, which is really growing the uncharted territories within the African landscape or African continent at this point in time.
When I started, which was I think 8 years ago, started 2 years after CNBC started, so and I landed in the Nigeria office. So what I wanted to do is just for us to be the first voice of business in West Africa. And I think after 10 years, that's what we have achieved. We were the first choice for business news, not only in West Africa, but also on the continent.
Happy 10th birthday, CNBC Africa, from the most famous white woman in South Africa, Mrs. Evita Besaidnet. That's me. Yes, there might be fake news, there might be alternative facts, but there will always be CNBC Africa.
And if you see me between the hours of 9 to 5, I'm a dead man walking, barely alive. It really gets to me, barely keeps me alive. 9 to 5, there must be something else, I just wanna survive. And if you see me between the hours of 9 to 5, I'm a man walking, barely alive. 9 to 5, it really gets to me, barely keeps me alive. 9 to 5, there must be something else, I just wanna survive. And if you see me between the hours of 9 to 5, I'm a dead man walking, barely alive.
Hi, this is PJ Powers, Tandeka, and I'd like to wish CNBC Africa a happy 10th birthday. Thanks for everything you've done for me and for all the other artists and for just being a great representative of Africa. So happy birthday, and I hope you have a great day, and I wish you 10 years more success and prosperity. Shot.
Happy 10-year anniversary to the wonderful CNBC Africa team across the continent.
10 years ago, South Africa, under the leadership of President Thabo Mbeki, was repositioning the whole African continent to be quite relevant to what's going on in the world, the socio-economic development of the world. So there was a concept called African Renaissance, which was really to say there's a break point in terms of how Africa has been understood before and what's the new role Africa will be playing. And it was so opportune that CNBC was then launched on that verge of bringing the new understanding of what Africa has to offer to the world. And since then, we have seen the narrative around the world not showing pictures of hungry kids about Africa, but actually telling the world to say, come through with mobilization of capital into Africa, and there are a lot of business opportunities, economic opportunities that can be pursued by Africa.
I think the very first board meeting was an interesting one. Obviously, you still have to get to know the people, your fellow board members, and I remember very clearly how I walked into the newly refurbished boardroom, and behind the chairman's chair there was this framed rifle, and in a glass case, and the vice chairman made some joke about this is there for emergencies when board members don't toe the line. So that was very memorable. And then, of course, a couple of years back when management shared with the board that we were going to achieve our first profitable year, that was also very memorable.
Now, in this time, what have you been the most proud of in terms of your oversight of CNBC Africa? Perhaps the expansion into the rest of the continent being one?
That is absolutely one. I'm most really proud of the fact that I've been there from day one, that I've seen this business grow from nothing, achieving year-on-year revenue growth. But what I'm really most proud of is the fact that talent has been developed locally, good talent.
My story is a story of personal relationships. Back in the day when I was much more diligent doing my gym, I met Rakesh Wahi at gym, and being the gentleman that he is, he one day then approached me and we had a conversation. And as they say, that was the beginning of a journey together. After a while, Rakesh invited me and asked me if I would consider joining the board of directors of CNBC. I was very excited because I was aware of CNBC's role as an Africa business news channel that was breaking ground in a very important area that the continent needed.
As CNBC Africa grew, not just as a channel across Africa, but in terms of its scope and the type of programming we covered, so too did our audience.
And in the early days, the input from the different countries across Africa in terms of the programming grid, and what I'm talking about here is crossing to Nairobi and getting analysis from commentators on the ground in Nairobi on the markets in that environment, and similarly in Lagos, in Nigeria. The South African market wasn't ready for that. They weren't ready for the Africa growth story. And in the early years, there was pushback from the market going, no, we want South Africa content, we want South Africa content. About 4 years into the CNBC Africa journey, that changed dramatically. And suddenly, the unique selling proposition for the channel was the fact that we were getting this rich content. We were uncovering markets across the rest of Africa, and they, in fact, were the growth story and still are the growth story.
Well, after I've been here about 2.5 years, the company, Africa Business News, wanted to launch Forbes magazine into Africa. They thought it was a big market for it, which I agree. And they were looking at a number of people with experience in the building, and I'd done like 6 years of print before I ever joined television. And print was still one of my passions, so they approached me and I was very happy. I mean, I was one of the greatest offers you ever get in the career to say, can you launch this world famous magazine on the continent? And thankfully, almost from day one, it's been a great success, and it's been an absolute joy to edit.
Take us through the rationale behind launching a magazine in a time where many would say that the print industry is dying or essentially dead.
It's a very interesting question, because this is exactly what somebody asked me in 2010 when we did launch Forbes Africa. So Forbes is a multi-platform brand. The ultimate print medium is just one of the avenues that, that Forbes is recognized for. We, again in 2009 or 2000, well, going back earlier to 2007, in our 10-year rollout, we wanted to get into print, we wanted to get into digital, we wanted to get into events. So we approached the Forbes family and licensed the brand, but subsequently we've done conferences with them, we've done, with the brand rather, we've launched a women's product, Forbes Women Africa, we've launched a lifestyle brand, Forbes Life Africa, and we're now in the process of launching ForbesAfrica.com, which would then sort of nicely supplement what we're doing on the digital side with CNBC.
And then came the online. So you sort of followed the changes in the media consumption patterns, in how media itself was changing, and then you adapt.
This adaptation soon became adoption of new media as the media landscape started to change. Sid Wahi was brought in as fresh young blood to head up ABN Digital, the online division of CNBC Africa's holding company. Sid was to ensure that CNBC had a prominent digital space.
If you just look at the evolution of television, it's really gone from a linear medium that you would watch based on appointment viewing rather than kind of just searching through information, and the way that we consume media has really changed. So in 2009, when we first launched ABN Digital, we were very strong in the TV front, but we didn't have a presence online, and even in 2009 that was sort of I would say a failing on our part. So we launched ABN Digital as a platform to house all of this great video content we've been creating on CNBC Africa. That's gone through its own evolution in the last couple of years. We've subsequently gone on to live streaming, so you can actually watch CNBC Africa on multiple devices across the globe. At least the African programming. We've licensed the CNBC brand in the digital space as well, so we launched CNBCAfrica.com, and it's become a financial or business news portal that caters to all of sub-Saharan Africa. So I've always had a passion for software development and technology, and when I was in University of Varsity, I studied business. So it's kind of given me the footing I needed to understand sort of the business side as well as the technology and the software development side. So when I joined the company in 2010, I was involved with the setup of Forbes magazine and Forbes Africa, and shortly after that I moved on to my next project, which was the digital project. So aside from leading the development of the platform, I've also sort of created the advertising packages, the strategy around our growth and development in that regard. And I'm constantly sort of looking for new avenues to monetize digital content, which anybody in that space would know is very challenging.
I think the geographic growth was, obviously a very important aspect for the channel, because you cannot be a true Pan-African television station if you don't have the capacity to report from across the continent. So we set up state-of-the-art studios, not just here in South Africa, in Johannesburg, but also in Cape Town. We had a bureau in in Kenya, in East Africa. We later set up in Rwanda. And in Nigeria, we started off with Lagos and Abuja, and then opened one in Port Harcourt as well. So one was the geographic growth, which was very important. The second aspect was integration of news from capital markets. Now that was a very strong value that we had set out with, and you talked about being in the JSE. My first port of call actually in 2006 was to establish our presence at the JSE itself. We wanted to actually set up our main studios there. But there were a lot of limitations in infrastructure, and they weren't really ready for us in 2006 and 7. But then they finally opened up the space on the mezzanine level, where we now have our studios for CNBC.
And it's a great pleasure for me today to welcome you to this venue and to really welcome CNBC Africa as our first anchor tenant at this venue.
I think it's fantastic that CNBC is broadcasting right here from the JSE, the largest exchange in Africa.
I think it's a momentous occasion for CNBC Africa, simply because we're in the commercial hub on the continent.
So the capital markets integration was very important. We had a presence there. We went into the Nairobi Stock Exchange, we were in the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and being able to report from there was important, because people always thought that Africa didn't have a developed capital market, but we were able to talk about what was happening, even though there are limited stocks and limitations in in the capital markets. But once you're able to start talking about it, it creates an interest. And we've seen markets like India actually developed after information started flowing out to the consumers. So the aspect of capital markets was very important. The geographic expansion was very important, and I think we've our move into Kigali as our East African headquarters was an important one. The Kigali Convention Center is one of the greatest convention centers that I've seen, not just in Africa but anywhere in the world. And we now have a studio there. We're able to talk about some of the important events that are taking place, whether it's the African Union or President Kagame has just been fantastic with the way the growth is taking place in Rwanda.
Hello and welcome to this special coverage of the 27th Africa Union Summit in Kigali, Rwanda.
Rwanda has been actively involved in NEPAD since its inception, and let me assure you that we will continue to play our part.
We would like to see excellent, efficient, clean, accountable companies to come and work with us here in the continent, develop this continent. We don't want crooks.
The biggest war is that of talking.
You take a look at Rwanda, what Rwanda is also doing with regard to textile industries. So as part of that industrialization strategy that we're going to finance is to help countries to develop special economic zones.
The financial sector has been growing and has been financing or increasing their financing to the private sector, which is a good sign.
So we will be able to take the African story out, and as technology and distribution becomes more accessible, you'll be able to watch this all over the world. And the World Economic Forum and other events, we've been strategic partners. We finished 10 years in our partnership with WEF this year. Not only do we have a very strong presence at Davos, but also the African agenda and the road to Davos. Our senior team's been working very closely with the World Economic Forum on setting the agenda for Africa, and we're very proud of that partnership.
Our ongoing coverage of the World Economic Forum, both internationally and from an African perspective, is another feather in the cap of the broadcaster, and our coverage has grown extensively over the years.
Welcome back. You're still watching this World Economic Forum special, coming to you live from the city of Durban, where the 27th World Economic Forum on Africa is currently in session.
And I started the Africa Business Leaders Awards in about 6 years ago. It's our 7th year this year, and this was to recognize leadership on the continent. Our African business leaders face challenges which are, people don't really imagine what's going on in terms of running a successful Pan-African or African business. You take a lot for granted when you're in the developed world. You can't take those things for granted when you're in Africa.
The ABLES has become the biggest and most prestigious business awards on the African continent, and the glittering ceremonies encompassing everything that's positive about doing business in Africa, awarding the most deserving across the continent.
Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday dear CNBC Africa, happy 10th anniversary CNBC Africa. It's been so amazing being part of the team that's not only just been telling the African business story on the continent, but just having the opportunity to take that story to the world. Here's to another 10 years. Thank you so much for everything, and best of luck.
From Nairobi, Kenya, happy 10th birthday, CNBC Africa.
Congratulations, CNBC Africa, on your 10-year anniversary.
The past decade has seen you talk to over 10,000 newsmakers,
business leaders,
and heads of state,
and truly helped to make CNBC
first in business worldwide.
From your colleagues across the globe,
we congratulate you on your anniversary.
And here's to the next 10 years
of your newsmaking coverage.
We all face certain seemingly insurmountable challenges in life, and CNBC Africa staff have faced their share of challenges.
Well, I mean, if you just take the 10 years, when I started in 2008, I started smack bang in the middle of the recession. So that must have been one of the biggest challenges that I've faced. Not just in my 10 years here, but in my career, because I mean it was not an easy time, particularly when you are facing those sort of challenges in the market. Marketing budgets are the first to get slashed.
Well, we didn't have the staff, maintenance staff or the support team, and the team that used to be here from a support perspective, they had already all left. So we were basically not really trained, there was no handover, and the station went down. So here I am, in car, and I have the whole of Rakesh, Berta, Bronwyn, everyone standing behind me and wanting to know, what's the normal thing everyone asks? How long is it going to take? And I don't even know where to start, where to look, what to do.
And I think just the way, taking my expertise, taking my experience of at that stage 22 years, and just relaxing myself and taking lead in that situation.
Being stuck at airports that are in the middle of nowhere with none of the luxuries that we know, in terms of Johannesburg or Switzerland or Dubai. Having to deal with situations that you've never thought would arise, and dealing, in places where you wouldn't be able to find certain things that you would find in places like Johannesburg. And I guess those are sort of the challenges that come with the job, and I guess those are the things that grow you and give you an experience that nobody can take away from you. And I think it's that sort of university of life that has been so valuable.
Well, I would like to wish CNBC a happy 10-year anniversary. Since CNBC Africa opened here in our province, especially in Johannesburg, it has taken the message of hope across the continent very, very effectively.
And what about your most interesting on-air moments? I'm fairly new on the channel, and for me it was falling off my chair. Actually, I was sitting at this exact place. But what about you? What have been your most interesting on-air moments?
I think the lighter moments certainly happened in the early days where CNBC Africa was concerned, and it was because the technical teams and the on-air teams were trying to get familiar or trying to work with and align themselves with the state-of-the-art technology that the channel launched with. And in the earlier periods, there were really some dramatic hit-and-miss camera shots where the director would shout into your ear, "Duck," and you would have a sort of very well-to-do business person sitting next to you. You would take instruction. The one time I grabbed the lady sitting next to me, said "Duck." I think she thought that a bomb had gone off in the newsroom. And then I held her under the desk and said, "Just don't move," until they gave us the all clear. So it was like the Wild West, camera shots everywhere, presenters didn't really know what they were doing, but we survived, and here we are 10 years later.
Then with every broadcaster, there are those moments that don't make it to air, or do make it to air but shouldn't have. And after 10 years, the cutting room floor looks hysterically cluttered. Roll the tape.
So what is Rob Kardashian?
So Rob Kardashian is the overweight brother who's struggling with his weight issues.
Oh, he's overweight.
Yes, and he is the youngest in the family, and obviously has some issues. But he's trying to get a sock collection on board, and once that's online, maybe I'll get you a pair or two just to congratulate you for knowing who he is.
I'm sorry I asked this question. 24 hours from Tulsa.
You want to get that quickly?
No,
I
no,
don't want to interrupt
no.
you.
Hold on,
let me get that. Let me just get that. Hold on a second. Hello?
Perhaps if she would stay, she said, okay.
No, we can't do that.
Toby can't talk right now because we're busy shooting our television show. Do you mind calling Toby in about half an hour or so? Who should I say called? Oh, it's about your credit rating.
It's the reason I'm not successful. It's because I get distracted by such trivia throughout my life.
Welcome to Business Tonight West Africa, where we bring you a wrap of some of the top business. Who is sleeping on the prompter? Arrange yourself. You cannot just be calling Dara.
Yeah! Kevin, thank you very much for joining us. Not Kevin Weeks. Sorry, so your name?
Jeff Osborne.
Jeff Osborne.
Jeff Osborne, of course it is. Let's take a look at that story. New vehicle sales.
Bring it, Karabo, bring it.
Frozen yogurt. Is it good? All right, so there we've got famous brands buying 70%. So you would have bought 70% of Wackerberry.
I mean, low in fat and high in calcium.
Brilliant.
It's the frozen yogurt for my lifestyle.
All right, well, we'll let you continue eating while we go to Mishu with the news stories.
Do you know who Dr. Dre is? I thought it might be Nazipa's gynecologist or something. Who's Dr. Dre?
Okay.
You are trying to say something.
Who the hell dressed you?
Don't you like my Breaking Bad hat?
Now we'll take, oh my God, what did you just do there? Go back to Traore out. What is wrong with you, Dami? You had all the time.
buyers can source product locally.
This is a massive amount. Sorry, Paul.
Well, hang on, I need to give a
No, that's it for business tonight. Join us after the break with the Gadget Man and later Markets Africa.
Prince Lyman, not Lyman.
Well, as you can tell, World Cup fever has certainly taken over across the globe. But now we cross over to our headquarters where CNBC Africa's Karabo KTL and at Simone 13 are standing by to give us a Soccer World Cup update. Guys, take it away.
Long throw there from the JSE.
For all the disasters, though, there are also the highlights, those moments that truly lift us up into the rafters of career ecstasy.
Yo, I like everything about TV, I'm not gonna lie. TV is like, you know, the thing for me. I grew up watching TV. I didn't know I would work for a TV company, but TV is actually my passion. I would say that, yeah. I wouldn't be doing anything else but TV.
So highlight certainly is the family that's been created over the 10 years, the connections, the bonds, to the point of us, you know, going on a voyage to go and climb Kilimanjaro as a team building exercise, which was truly something that stands out and will stay with me for the rest of my life.
You know, it's something that I've been thinking about now, specifically around this time, I guess, as you reflect on 10 years and you think, wow, what have I done with 10 years of my life? And one of the interesting things is that, I mean, I've visited 14 countries and 21 cities over the last 10 years, you know, for the business, some places more than once. And that alone has been just such a learning curve to get to see Africa, to get to experience, you know, business in different places, which a lot of people have not been able to do. And I guess some of the biggest takeaways from being part of this business for 10 years has been the stuff that you've not been able to learn in textbooks.
The highlights for me from a personal perspective was the opportunity to study at Harvard Business School. I did that in 2012. And it was life-changing. It was an opportunity that I know, had I not been with the organization, I would not have been able to do. Going to Harvard itself is, you know, the institution speaks for itself, and the experience there was just something that I came back with, and I just said, wow, it was amazing.
Certainly, I think CNBC Africa's alignment with the World Economic Forum, not only in Africa, but also on the global stage, has been, for me, one of the biggest growth aspects, both personally and for the channel. Davos happens, the World Economic Forum in Davos happens in January every year, and our team that is deployed from a programming and technical perspective gets bigger and bigger on an annual basis, and we're certainly consolidating more and more discussions about Africa on that platform.
We're going to mix it up, no protocol here. Hans Westberg, you're up next, sir.
The experience there is amazing, to deal with international broadcasters and with the World Economic Forum themselves.
There's been lots of highs and lows. Spending sort of, I always say that digital is my after hours job, because I typically start that after 5 p.m. But I would say if I had to pick a few of them, I would say just sort of integrating different systems and getting to a point where we've automated a lot of the workflows, becoming a leaner organization, better catered to delivering our vision for the future of this business. So if I had to put it on, I would say the Forbes and digital franchise both would be my proudest moments here.
So my highlight was winning an international award, you know, for a show that I was working on with a lady called Sue Bierkes, doing business in Africa.
I've been there when Mandela was released. I've been there when the Gulf War started, and I was at CNBC when Mandela died. And to work on a project or a news, breaking news like that, just makes you realize this is where you want to be. For all those scary days and those other days that's not nice, when you're there, when things happen, it just makes it all worthwhile, and that's why you just can't stay away or get another job outside broadcasting.
I think my memorable moments, the one that I always refer back to, is the opportunity that ABN had given me. I'd been here my first year, basically, and then Rakesh gave me an opportunity to look at CNBC Africa across the continent. So I went to Singapore, I went to US, I went to London, went to India. In a span of about 2 weeks, I was able to see what are the other companies doing within CNBC.
One of the greatest highlights of my career was when I covered the death of Nelson Mandela back in 2013. It was a very sad night, and I was on air from 10 o'clock that night when he died, right up until the following day. It was fantastic. In the fact that the whole world was coming on here to find out what was going on here, but also to find out insights about the man. And I was very lucky when I was still a reporter. I moved with him on the road when he was head of state for many years. I had quite a lot of contact with him. And it was just an honor to tell that story and also tell it on behalf of CNBC Africa.
Well, let me wish the CNBC Africa a happy birthday on your 10th anniversary. You know, I watch CNBC Africa all the time. You know, I like the quality of the program. Your business and financial programs are world class. And also, I want to say that the viewership, you know, really appreciate the quality of the transmission that we get from CNBC Africa. So for all of you that are out there, you know, let me on behalf of all of us that watch you, you know, wish you a very happy, you know, 10-year anniversary and many, many more years serving Africa. Africa's future is going to be great, and I know you have a great part in telling that story.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, CNBC. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, CNBC Africa from Team Kigali.
Even though it's a small business, the ABN Group over the years has been extremely conscious of its social responsibilities and has participated in various charitable causes in sub-Saharan Africa. The ABN Education Trust was established in 2011 by founder Rakesh Wahi. The trust receives its funding from the Wahi family, the ABN Group of companies, the Transnational Academic Group, and through the tireless efforts of its patron, Mrs. Saloni Wahi. The group focuses on 3 principal activities. The first is to support orphanages, where children are in a desperate situation. One of these orphanages is the Tutuzela Orphanage in Alexandra. The second is to provide tertiary education bursaries to students, particularly young women. Over the last 6 years, the Trust has provided bursaries to over 30 students to complete their graduation. The third are intern opportunities to young Africans for valuable workplace experience that provides them with the necessary skill set to apply for jobs and enter the formal workplace. Over the last 10 years, over 250 internships have been given by the ABN Group through various group companies.
What's next now? Say for the next 5 to 10 years, what's the vision
on
CNBC Africa?
I think it's for CNBC Africa, it's important to get more viewership, whether by terrestrial into various countries in Africa, move into more interactive programming as far as business and finance is concerned, and some form of entertainment as well.
Entertaining business programming is where CNBC Africa as a channel is headed, with reality television, one-on-one entrepreneurial profiles, and a strong African business voice. But what about the future of television? As more and more people consume media online and more media moves to viral platforms, what's going to become of the terrestrial broadcaster? Do we adapt or die?
Frankly, there is this big talk about move to digitization and especially amongst the new generation and the mobiles and smartphones, but I still believe that there is value on the screen, and it will remain a part. Like, you know, when television first came, they said radio is dead. Radio didn't die.
Still there, still here.
Still there. So it's part of the ecosystem in terms of information that the public receives.
So now television is going into a new era. A lot of consumers are saying they're consuming their media by streaming on the line. Where do you think the future of television is?
I agree 100%. I think that if we don't stay abreast of the trends in the industry, and specifically the digital trends, then you don't stand a chance as a broadcaster in terms of longevity. Luckily, CNBC Africa has invested a huge amount in their digital platform, cnbcafrica.com, and it's that relationship between the traditional broadcast mechanisms and the new broadcast mechanisms that will keep us ahead of the curve.
The ultimate delivery mechanism of television is going to change. It might move from satellite to fiber and fiber to something else, but the need or the desire to consume information and compelling, entertaining content is not going to change. So we are going to take advantage of the rollout of DTT by getting onto multiple platforms terrestrially in Africa. There's a lot happening with sort of platforms in the OTT space, and we're chatting to pretty much everybody and seeing how we can best leverage our content.
I think the future of television is going to change dramatically. Terrestrial broadcasting is not going to be what it's been. We're moving more into a digital world. People want on-demand television. They want it where they want it, when they want it. They don't want to be tied to a TV set and to a set broadcast pattern. So we need to adapt to that. And I know that Sid Wahi is working very hard at doing that. So I am sure this company will lead the way.
We're also becoming very involved in social media. Just looking at the World Economic Forum that took place in Durban last week, we actually had more hits and views on our social media accounts, and some of the video interviews that we did with the former and current finance minister did a lot better on those platforms than even on our own website. So we're constantly looking for new avenues of getting content out there, and I think the future is a mix of that widescreen television in your living room as well as the 3.5-inch device in your pocket.
In life, when you have established something on your own, it's like your own baby, your own family. And it is very difficult, you said you did, to give up control, on the day-to-day affairs, in being involved in every small decision of hiring and whatever. The moment you clear this concept of that, okay, I'm going to give control to someone else and I'm going to look at other things, is the day you really free yourself.
And the more productive you can be.
There's also the culture of the broadcasting world to consider, the passion that drives so many of us to work in the mornings. It's often been said about film and television that we do this because we just couldn't see ourselves doing anything else.
When I came here, I got to do everything, from vision control, vision mixing, directing now. You see, that's like everything. If I would say, I think CNBC, towards my career, it shaped everything.
Now I'm learning to produce, to be a producer for market shows. So I see myself being maybe an executive producer or a station manager. That's what I see myself as.
CNBC, more than anything, as an individual, it gives you a platform.
You can never take away the human element when it comes to the, how do you call it, authenticity of creativity.
I've been to over 30 countries. I've had like 4 full passports. I'm on my 5th now. If that's not motivation, I don't know what it is.
CNBC has totally given me an open playing field, and they've given me all opportunity and put their full trust with the board members and the investors to allow me to do what I need to do to get the place where it is now.
Happy birthday, CNBC Africa. We are very happy for you. 10 years is definitely a milestone to record.
And what about CNBC Africa as a brand and as a channel? Where does our future lie?
I do think that the brand speaks for itself. It is internationally, it is the go-to sort of television, whether it's online or television, in terms of business news. So, and that's going to happen on the African continent as well. CNBC is going to become the brand that you want to associate with, if it hasn't already.
The television side's become alive. The presenters, the style of presenting business news has changed vastly, and a lot more interactivity in the studio, and it's that stickiness that people want to come back to.
You can say what you want, but to be able to stick around for 10 years takes a level of resilience, a level of creativity, a level of planning, and I think that's something to be said. And you know, how well or how badly you've done it doesn't really matter. The fact is that you're still around, and you've managed to roll out a 24-hour business channel across the continent.
We have seen people who came in believing in the vision, and they stuck to the vision, and out of that they have become brands themselves, because they believe in the future of not just South Africa, the future of the African continent. And I think we have developed a caliber of people who are really so, I mean, I can't even describe how excited we are to have come to be recognized by our peer channels around the world to say the content developed out of Africa is on par with what is there in the world. And a really sincere thanks from us as directors to the staff who every day they come here to dedicate themselves, you know, unreservedly to ensure that there's absolutely a beautiful Africa that is being crafted, and a beautiful Africa with huge prospects economic-wise that we have to enjoy, and probably the next generation will look with awe to say that's where the story started.
And what we're doing is very pioneering, and I think that is something, there's something to be said about that, and I think it's something to be proud of, and I think it's also something quite revolutionary to be sort of aligned to.
One of the greatest satisfactions is, I believe, even if it's a drop in the ocean, I believe we've improved the perception of doing business in Nigeria. In my opinion, I mean, we interview more than 10, 15 people on a daily basis. Those are quality entrepreneurs, quality businessmen, and giving them the platform to express their views on their business, on the economy, has definitely, I think, in my opinion, improved the image of Nigeria in the world.
What makes you different is the perspectives and the diversity of the reporting across the length and breadth of Africa.
CNBC really has pioneered the African marketplace. No one else has the footprint, the territory, has gained the respect and the credibility like what CNBC has.
I think CNBC has been able to tell the African story in such a compelling way that we've seen other channels mushrooming and telling the African story. I think that's a great success of this channel.
One of the coolest things about my job is I get to travel a lot, and I get to interview these CEOs in their offices. And for me, it's always awesome to see when you walk into this guy's office and he's got CNBC Africa playing in his office, you know. It just shows you like the impact that we have on business.
There'll always be a place for that kind of media, which is a lot of hard work and expense to make, but it's worth it. That's what will win us our place in the marketplace.
CNBC Africa seems to capture every major event across the continent and every proper news story, and it's always good to come and turn it on in the hotel, wherever I am in the continent, and have some clue as to what's going on.
I wish CNBC Africa, our station, the very best. Keep going strong, keep using the young people to do your broadcasts, I love it, and keep focusing on the true issues of the continent.
It's nice to know I never have to compare you to any other station, as no one in Africa does it like you do.
At the end of the day, this channel is about money, and money impacts every single person across the world. If you aspire to make money, to understand how important savings and retirement ultimately is for you and your family, then you should be watching CNBC Africa actually on a daily basis.
You know, this is a very proud moment for us. I'm personally, you know, overjoyed hitting a milestone like 10 years. It's an important milestone for the business, for our people,
for everybody who has supported us. So this message is basically for everybody who's been involved as a stakeholder, whether it's our advertisers, our staff, our suppliers. I'd like to thank everybody today from the bottom of my heart, for making us or enabling us to reach this milestone, which is so important in our journey. It's the encouragement that we've got from everybody. And I know it's not been easy. It's not been easy for our people. It's not been easy for a lot of other stakeholders who are associated. I'd like to thank the IDC, who's actually been a shareholder in this business. And they've been putting their shoulder behind everything that we've done all these years. Every time we've been through a problem, they've been there to support it. So, it's a time to express my gratitude towards each and every person who's been involved with this business from the time we set up in 2007.
10 years and growing. Keep it up, CNBC Africa.
And I would like to congratulate CNBC on the 10th birthday.
And congratulations on all the wonderful work you've done over the last 10 years.
Happy 10th birthday, CNBC Africa. I wish you many more years to spread your wings across the African continent.
You guys, you rock.
You are where business starts.
Happy birthday, CNBC, for your 10th anniversary.
Happy 10 years.
CNBC, happy 10 years.
And may you have many, many more. I really rely on CNBC for the information.
And I would like to wish CNBC happy 10-year anniversary and keep up the good work.
I want to congratulate CNBC Africa on their 10th anniversary.
Happy 10th birthday, CNBC Africa.
10 is been long, though.
Happy 10-year anniversary, CNBC Africa!
Happy 10th birthday, CNBC Africa.
Priscilla the Musical wishes CNBC a fabulous 10th birthday!
Happy 10th birthday, CNBC Africa!
Congratulations, and may you have many more returns.
Happy 10th birthday, CNBC.
Happy birthday, CNBC Africa.
Wish you many more.
Thanks so much for providing all of us with fantastic news and keeping us up to date with all the developments in the country and in Africa and worldwide.
Thank you for everything you've done over the last decade to bring a world of business to the planet.
We wish CNBC Africa 10 years birthday.
Happy 10th birthday, CNBC Africa.
Happy 10th birthday, CNBC Africa. All of the best and good luck.
Happy 10th birthday, CNBC Africa.
Happy 10th, yeah? Happy 10th birthday, CNBC Africa.
Happy 10th birthday, CNBC Africa. Yay! Well done.
Happy 10th birthday, CNBC Africa.
Happy 10th anniversary, CNBC Africa.
CNBC, I wish you happy 10th birthday. Keep doing the good work.
Congratulations to CNBC Africa on hitting the milestone of happy birthday to you.
Happy 10th birthday, CNBC Africa.
What a phenomenal one. 10 years. You've only been around for just a year.
Happy 10 years.
Don't stop. Don't stop. Don't stop. Don't stop. Don't stop on the road of life. You can't stop. You can't stop moving. Keep move. Keep that pace. You switching to gear. Let's go as we climb up the hill. Don't slow down. Pedal a little more. The mind is working. It's in control. Your wheels are turning a little more. Going higher another notch. Keep it steady. Don't watch the clock go round. Cycle. Life is a cycle. Life is a cycle. Cycle.